Hey everyone, we live?
We're live.
Awesome. Okay, I'll share my screen. So we are going to cover a couple things today. One is the sliders, the big one, but we did a cool little competition this last week. I thought we should dig into the code a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. You guys see my screen okay?
Yep.
Cool. So here is the Slater countdown winners. So we had this candle, birthday candle one. We had the prehistoric dinosaur one, and then we had the winner, which is this sound rive solution by Jeff. So I thought, let's look at Jeff's real quick. And his is a little bit more complex because he's using Rive, and I can't speak to it too much. But the cool thing about the web is the code's always accessible. So I just pulled up the code here, and so we can take a look at it. And you'll notice there's like a ton of stuff going on. Sorry, this is the wrong one. Let's see if this is it. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on this one. I think he just like loads all of the Rive code. And I believe that's auto-generated from that interface, the Rive interface. But down here, there is a bunch of code that is just JavaScript that we can look at. So let's go back to this real quick. So obviously this has like something where if I allow this, it will have a voice component to it, which again, Rive, I believe Jeff already did a demonstration of how to work with that. But it's pretty cool. It's not working right now. I don't know if that's because I didn't allow it to run, or if it's because my computer's overheating with streaming this, but oh, there it comes. Anyway, so there's a few different things that are going on though. I thought maybe we could look at this fast forward button and just see that something is working. And Lemmy, I did want to ask you, what do you think is driven by JavaScript versus the interactions? Do you think these kind of rotating words are JavaScript, or is that an interaction?
I think those are probably JavaScript as well, because they don't have like a moving pattern, as I can see from your screen share. So they're a bit randomized, and you can do that with Webflow, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, so maybe we can see how that's working. So there's this idea of text too.
Yeah, definitely.
So find that here. Okay, so we've got this set up. We're creating a canvas, and we've got these three text elements. We're pushing that. So this looks like he's using P5.js. This is something we saw earlier. So every time, so we set up the canvas, and then every draw, which is every frame rate, so like every second roughly, we set the background to black, I guess. And we update something, which I'm not sure what that update is doing, or this display. Okay, so down here we have this class, it's text class, and we have this update, which is changing, it's handling the velocity, and you'll notice like this position. So if x is less than 0, it looks like it's going to redirect it. So we've got the one for the height, or for the width, and one for the height. And this velocity, I'm sure, is coming from P5.js. So pretty cool, this display. So this position, it's just updating it. So it's just running that, that function again and again, and we get that kind of cool floating animation. So down here, let's see what the fast forward is. So the nice thing about the web is like the code's always accessible. The problem is a lot of times it will be minified. If you push this project up into a production domain, we also minify it, so it's much harder to track what's going on. But in this staging, we don't minify that code, so it's pretty easy to find. So this fast forward is a class of fast forward. So let's see if we can find that in here. Okay, so here we're selecting the fast forward, and on the click event, we are doing this finish fire. So let's find finish. And so this is at onload. Okay, so this is all coming from Rive. And so we have this object here, which has a finish method. And then the .fire. I'm guessing .fire is coming from Rive. And you're just returning time done. And then, yeah, so I guess there's probably in Rive, there's a animation that does the entire thing. And so that fires, it's probably defined up here in like this gobbledygook that's coming from Rive. So pretty cool, Jeff. The only other question I want to look into is just like how he handles the date. So up here we have the countdown. We get this date, target date here, and this is the time remaining. It gives us the countdown days. So this is running every second, roughly, I think. And I would imagine there's that fire, the same .fire method that gets run when the time is set to that day. Yeah, target date. So if it's update interval, this is the update interval, so it's running over and over again. I just don't see the place where it's actually firing. But maybe it's, yeah, we'll have to get Jeff on the phone to define where it gets fired on that target date. But anyway, awesome work, Jeff. Any questions around this implementation? Anything you'd like to dig into? I'm obviously not the expert to talk to it, but would be happy to dig into any other component of this. If not, let's quickly maybe look at this one, birthday cake. He does some kind of cool stuff. Remind me who did this one. Jack, do you know who did the cake countdown?
Yeah, this is one called Andrea Morgan, and then JP Dionisio did the cake one. So the Jurassic Park one is Andrea, and then the cake one is JP.
Awesome. So JP. So we grow this candle, and we've got a different length based on the number of days. So we've got some cool math going on. He's got green socks, so the what's this called? GSAP running to handle some of that animation,
Yeah.
I'm sure. And this is a little bit easier to get into. It's not quite as much code, but so we have the target date. So he's set that on in the DOM within Webflow. And so we're getting that date from this. And you'll notice this is kind of cool because he's got this selector and he's using the custom attribute here of cake. And so that's going to get us, what was it, 4 or 5 different events. And then we loop through them with the for each. And so we can get that date for that particular event. And we do the dates remaining stuff. And then we have a set timeout, which is going to be running every 1 second. Honestly, I'm a little surprised it's a set timeout, not a set interval. Set timeout usually runs once, whereas set interval runs again and again. But maybe I'm missing something there. And so here we have the GSAP that's going to be updating the height. And so we have the days remaining, the odometer value format. So this odometer thing, I wonder what that is. Probably some new library. Lemmy, have you ever heard of odometer?
No, I didn't use it before.
Okay, so it transitions numbers with ease. That's kind of cool. So I guess it's just going to be handling this 98. We'll go to 97. An odometer does that. So it takes this method and you pass in these parameters, this parameter object. So that's the element, the value format. So it's going to say days. I'm not sure, it takes 3 seconds maybe for that to flip.
It would be nice if we can see those not being days, but maybe being minutes or seconds to see how that odometer works. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point it's switching once a day. And so you got to be watching at that perfect time. And then it looks like he's got some confetti happening, which is something that we looked at last week. So can we fast forward it? Isn't there a button somewhere? Coconuts, strawberries, coconuts. So it looks like it's random. So here's the coconut one. So we have the different emojis. So we randomly get one of those emojis and we add that confetti. So I'm not sure what the colors do. Probably isn't required since we're using the emojis instead, but yeah, it's fun how it's a single emoji. Cool, good work, JP. Anything else you guys want to bring up on this one?
Nothing, just that, yeah, maybe it would be nice if it's not just days, so we can see what's it.
So let's quickly look at the dinosaur one. So Andreas. And just looking for the actual URL.
So this
is kind of cool because it's got the drag and drop functionality. Okay. My computer's really rich right now. Come down here, Slater, we can just open up the code right here, right click on that, and I just say open a new tab. but actually it's kind of better. It's usually what I do is just say reveal in sources panel. So we keep it all together. Just go here while we wait for that. Okay, so it looks like she's using a handful of libraries. I don't know what this SRI is. Simple Marquee.js. Ever worked with this, Lemmy or Jack?
Simple
No,
Marquee, no, but it looks something that would be
I'm
super useful.
going to speak to Andrea tomorrow about her project, so we're going to dive into how she made this.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So it just does these little marquees. So if we go back to
Okay, we
here,
often need that.
it's this piece down here. It stops when you drag over it. So she's also using Firework.js. I noticed that when I was playing around with it. And jQuery. This probably does not need to be added just because it's already in the project. Or this is jQuery UI. I take it back. I think jQuery UI you do have to add. Okay, so here is the infinite announcement. Looks like it's very simple to run. Just pass in your parameters or your configuration. So there's a duration on it, direction, pause on hover. This is a very common format. We're going to be looking at that at the same format for Swiper.js in a bit. Okay, so we're getting the date of the event and doing all those calculations. We've kind of looked at that already. I'm interested in the draggable piece. So it looks like it doesn't take much code. So it's using draggable, which I believe is a jQuery UI method. And yeah, it's pretty sweet that you can move stuff around with just that little piece of code. And the unaware dyno, let's go here real quick. That's covering all of them, I guess. So there's 8 dynos that you can drag around. When you click on this guy, you get that blue does whatever she wants. So you can't mess around with blue. That's handled right here. So on click, it's this alert, and the draggable is disabled. Awesome. And that's like the really cool thing about JavaScript is like moving stuff around on the page seems like it's a lot of work, but somebody solved it, and so it's really just calling that single line of code makes that work. And then we played with confetti. It looks like she's using something called fireworks. So let's just quickly see what that does. So let's do the spoiler. Sorry, dinosaurs are dead. You'll notice the fireworks follow my mouse. So that's fun. And it doesn't look like it takes too much. So we trigger this animations. So if this is clicks, then we trigger the animations. That runs this code here. And we're just saying there's new fireworks. It's going to, on click, I guess it will shoot a firework. On move, it will probably shoot a firework. And it looks like it does 1 firework per event. So awesome. Anything else you guys want to discuss on this one? It's fun.
Oh, good, yeah.
Most
I
engaging.
like the firework in the end that it's following the mouse. It's nice touch.
Yeah. Okay, so let's hop over to Swiper.js. We may get through this real quick with Slater's help, but here we have the UI already put together. So if we go to Swiper.js, let's go to the documentation. You may not need to go here with Slater, but generally speaking, it's always good to have the documentation open. So I'm going to go over the docs. And what I thought we could do, just so you know, I've got I've got the JavaScript for Slater staging, which I want to test. Well, I want to be pushing this up today, probably. It's just got a number of improvements, especially around the library, but then it's just a much cleaner implementation. So we have make sure this is running here. If I run into issues, I'll come back to the live version of Slater. Okay, so we're getting this high, so the code is properly loading, but you'll notice none of this is actually working. But what we have done is we've added like all the different components so that we are able to write JavaScript to them. So if you have anything you'd like to do with Swiper.js, please let us know and we can look into it. We'll do just a simple implementation initially, and we'll include like this control here for moving backward and forward, this control for adding dots, and then this will be a swiper or a slider for controlling those slides as well. So let's have Slater, see how useful Slater can be. Can you give me instructions on how to implement Swiper.js? And I'll say we, as Edgar Allen, have looked at all the different sliders. We would love to use the Webflow native slider more often, but we have found in a lot of cases that our clients are asking for more functionality. And so Swiper.js, I think, is the one that we've said we like the most, has the most functionality, it's well supported. So that this is like our kind of go-to these days. Lemmy, anything you'd add about the different sliders we've been looking at?
Not too much, but just that Swiper has really good documentation, and there is a lot of resource out there, the people implementing it Webflow, so it makes it easier for the first time to implement it easier. So yeah,
cool.
It's really good.
Okay, so step one is we have to add the CDN. This is a place where the AI will hallucinate oftentimes. Is like if we see this link, usually you shouldn't trust it. You should go out to the documentation and get an actual link from the documentation. It looks like in this case, AI Slater got it right. But again, like, don't trust links. Just go get the actual link. So I'm gonna go get that. What I usually do is just Swiper for whatever the name of the library is, and then CDN. And this one's oftentimes the first result. This is nice because you can just click this copy URL. And then we can come in here and we can add an external script. Now that's added. The CSS has already been added to the project. So I'm gonna leave that. And next we have to create the HTML structure. Again, that is already completed. So here we have that structure. And if we look at it, something we can potentially do is add multiple CMS collections. So right now we just have this single CMS collection. And so it's gonna load all the slides. And then we have all of the controls kind of built in around this. Okay, so let's go back. We've got that HTML in place, done. And then here we have kind of a basic implementation. So let's drag this on. You'll notice you can highlight this and just drag it on, or you can hit the copy button. The nice thing about this is I can just highlight the part I want and drag that on. And not only that, I can drag it to like where I want it to go. So you'll notice like that arrow key. So if I wanted it here, I moved it the last second, but I can drag it Shoot. As I drop, I'm moving the mouse. Okay, so that's the place I wanted it. And you'll notice there's a bunch of selectors, and so we need to make sure those selectors are right. Let's just save it though, and let's just see kind of where we get with the default. So still nothing working, to be expected. I think the big thing is we need to see what the right selections should be. So I'm gonna inspect here. Here we have card 2, list items, swiper slider. This is something I've started doing more and more, is adding data selector as the data attribute to use the selection. Obviously using classes is a little bit of a problem within Webflow because it can impact your styles. Using IDs is a problem because those IDs automatically get updated from time to time based on whatever else. If you add a data selector, it only gets updated when you say that it should be updated. So this is a really good way to do selections. So this is class swiper. So let's go back, and you'll notice here we're using swiper container. And so that is swiper container here. So we should be able to update that. Another thing that I've been using a lot is the backtick. And the backtick's really nice because that allows us then to use whatever tick marks we want in here. In order for this to be a data attribute, you just have to add these brackets as well. Let's see if that gets it right. Nice. So you'll notice something's working because it did change our UI. So that slider is working. And obviously the default, or what we set, is just one slide at a time. So let's come back here. So we've set the right selector. Our direction is horizontal. Loop is true. Here we have navigation elements and pagination elements. So let's first get these working. So navigation is, I believe, going to be this here. And you'll notice it's not working. So let's see what those classes are. Okay, so swiper dash next. I'm guessing the other one is swiper dash previous. So swiper, so we just don't need the button in there. That should do it. Nice. So now we have those working. Let's take a look at the pagination down here. So you'll notice this is not working. So this is called swiper bullet and swiper bullet wrapper. So swiper pagination, I'm gonna guess it's wrapper as opposed to the bullet.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. So you'll notice they dynamically generated these. So perfect. Next is this thing, which I'm not exactly sure what it is. So let's take a look at what that class is. So swiper drag. So now I'm going to go to, let's stay within Slater. This is a good place to go to the documentation, but again, let's have Slater solve some of our problems. So I want to use the swiper drag. What do we think it's called? I mean,
I'm not sure what is the name of the
swiper drag.
wrapper.
Plot navigation. So I have, what do we call this? A drag wrapper. element to handle this? Can we also show 3 slides at that time? See if Slater AI can handle 2 tasks. Let's go here while we wait. So in the docs, let's go to the core API. You'll notice Element, React, and Vue. Those are JavaScript frameworks. So those implementations will be a little bit different. But so let's see, drag.
Screen swiper scroll bar was called. The previous screen.
Scroll bar.
Yeah.
Okay, so Slater may have a hard time with what I gave it. Okay, so it's giving me all the HTML again. So here, the grab cursor.
Yeah, he understood you for to change the icon to this one.
Okay, so let's see that update. Okay, so we got the 3. And I don't know if it was doing it before. It's probably the default where you'll notice when I'm clicking down, the little hand is grabbing it. So cool. That's working, but let's ask again. We want to use the scroll bar. So thanks. And we also use the scroll bar with, what was it called? Dot swiper drag second spell wrapper. And say, please provide only the JavaScript. Okay, so here's that scroll bar piece. And is that what I said, swiper scroll bar? No.
Swiper drag.
So swiper drag wrapper. Okay, so it has it, but it's not configured properly. Cool. So I actually have an earlier implementation. So we could, like, we're not actually using this. So it's I'm sure there's a setting. So if we go back to the documentation, there are all of these parameters that we can pass. So I'm guessing we just have to define the element or something like that. So this is the container. Okay, so I think that's probably our issue. So this was the drag class.
So maybe not the wrapper, but like the element inside the wrapper is the target.
It'd be funny if that's what it was before, huh? So it's somehow new. Well, specify the class of the ID. So that actually does seem right. That's the element. We just want to add this class, drag class. And again, like I always do copy and paste as opposed to trying to spell it out, because I'm much more consistent using Command C and V than I am typing something right. Okay, so let's see if that works. Oop. Okay, so we have the wrapper. Oh, swiper drag. So I did pull this one, which is the wrong one. So like, you'll notice this is an element, so we're using the dot. Because it's a drag class, I don't think we need a dot. But let's see. Cool. There we go. We got it.
Nice.
So it takes some time. Like if you are consistently using Swiper, like you can start adding little features, because look at how much there is. Like it's got a million different customizations. And so with that, like we've gotten kind of like the kind of core pieces. I bet there's some different things we can do around changing what this looks like. The other thing I wanted to bring up real quick was the events. If you have a library, you really do want to have events for that library in order to really customize it as much as you'd like. So here's the events documentation. And you'll notice there's a bunch of different events. This is nice. This is a ton of events. There's a lot of times there aren't events connected to a library, and it makes your life much harder if you want to customize it. I would love for the attributes from FinSuite to have events, because they tend to not, if I remember correctly. I find myself running into issues there. So here's this before init. Actually, before we do that, let's do next slide, something like that. Slide change. So let's try this one. I'm going to ask Slater. I don't know exactly how I pass that in. So I'm going to say, I'd like to do something on the slide change and help with that. You'll notice like my prompts aren't great, like, but the AI is really good at kind of understanding what I'm asking. The more specific you can be, the better. So I should have an idea of like on slide change, I want to add a class or something like that, and it will be better with that additional context. So here we have the slide change, and it's actually giving us this active index, which is nice. So let's see that's working. Awesome. So the slide changed, the index is 1. So I guess this is the active slide. So that's a little confusing. So slide index, I don't know if I would want it to be 1, but I guess that's saying this is the one that's moving. Never mind. So this is active slide index is just going up each time. So let's see. So yeah, 4 of 10. So it is getting the right slide there. And I guess this index may be changing just because what Swiper seems to be doing is it's adding and removing the individual slides. And so you'll notice, like, even though we're at 4, it goes back to 9 so that it's got that looping functionality. So that's something to be aware of, just like how much this Swiper.js is manipulating the DOM. Cool. So there's that. What I thought we could do, any requests from anyone?
There's a couple of things in the chat. So Berno says, I had an issue where when I added the swiper libraries to Slater, it didn't load. Once it was in the page header, it worked fine, but when in Slater, it didn't work.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'd have to look at that implementation. For this particular version, this is all getting loaded down here at the bottom. And so if we look at the actual, so the staging is the one we're working out of. So if I reveal this in the source panel, you'll notice we have the swiper JS code here. And then once we get through all this, so that's when we get to the code that we're writing. My guess would be, Berno, is that you had the CDN below your code. And so moving that CDN, moving the swiper CDN to the top of the page would ensure that it's loading before your code is loading. But without seeing it, I'm not totally sure.
And then the other thing was, Josiah says, I thought we had to use the class only. I wasn't too fond of that, but I'm glad I can use the attribute.
Yeah. And again, what I find is extremely, what I would say is best practice is backticks with the data attribute. And for it to be the data attribute, you just need to make sure it's got in the brackets. But these backticks allow me to use single ticks or double ticks. So like a lot of times you'll be just copying and pasting from different places, and having to rewrite your tick marks is super obnoxious. So these backticks are the way to go.
Awesome. And then just to ask maybe like a more basic question. In terms of setting up the slider in Webflow, like just to be really clear, I mean, swiper.js just allows you a ton more functionality than a Webflow native slider would. But are there any other things that people should be aware of that are the big advantages of using a custom slider in comparison to a Webflow slider?
Yeah, I'll let Lemmy speak to this, and I wish Nicola was on the call because he went through all of them. But I think the biggest thing that I see is you have a ton more functionality and you have events. So you can do different things on that slide event or as it loads. I'm not sure how multi-CMS works with the native one, but like we will be able to handle like any number of CMS collections consolidated into a single swiper, and that all works. So Lemmy, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say the same. Like the Webflow one is just super locked, and there are a lot of bugs when working with it. And if you want to do something more complex, it's not doable, or it's hard to do it, and you're not often getting the result that you want. So approaching something with Fiber.js just give you more flexibility. And, yeah,
probably the biggest one that I hear clients complain about is like this actual swiping ability. So the Webflow native one works well on the phone for swiping, but on the desktop it doesn't swipe. So you can like add these kind of kludgy fixes for that, but it's not like as nice as this one.
Yeah, that makes loads of sense. Can we have a little look at on the Webflow side of things? Just if you can click into the Webflow project, and just so because I feel like obviously we already had this project before diving into Slater. So you've got items coming from the CMS in Webflow, which you set up obviously before diving into Slater. Is that right?
Exactly. So here we have the slides. What did I just do?
Deleted.
Yeah, I don't know how I just deleted that, but I guess I deleted it. How did I delete?
I don't know. Because I see like the source says none, but it's locked. So I don't know if yeah. Okay, someone.
It looks like someone's taken over my hello. Since I'm not in Webflow as much, I use a company account as opposed to a personal one. Let's see if I can kick him out. This is Lemmy working on our first Webflow app. It's going to be coming out soon.
Oh,
okay. So here's the 10 slides. And let's do this real quick before I get kicked out again. Let's just
to Jack's previous question. So that's also one functionality that's not native to Webflow Slider is to pull stuff from the CMS. So you need to have different workarounds in order to get slides to be CMS driven.
Okay, so I'm going to publish this real quick, and just what we have here is we now have what could be 2 separate CMS collections, and I'm going to close this out so that if someone does take over, it's okay. And it's kind of cool. Well, it won't because of how I use the selection. I played around with this earlier today, and if you are using the same, like if I just copy and paste like I did, then both of them worked right off the bat. But now it won't work because of how I select the how I'm selecting the wrapper, the swiper wrapper.
Cool. I think that's I'm just imagining like so many different variations of sliders that you can just have code snippets for within Slater, so that it just makes it super easy to have all sorts of different variations of sliders. But yeah, this has been epic. Anyone else have any questions?
I just have to jump now. Thank you, Jared, for this.
Yeah. I realize we are running up on time. Just to quickly show you how to do this, this is what I did earlier. So we have this before init. And so we can say on before init. What we'll do is we'll take the slides from swiper, first swiper, and we'll clone those. So this variable holds those 10 slides in swiper 2. And then we remove that swiper, and in swiper 1 we append those slides, and then we'll have 20 slides that we're able to work with from 2 CMS collections. And one thing you could do is you could have everything hidden, and then on init you can show it. So that would make sure there's no jumpiness as you're doing this work of moving slides over. But cool. Well, we're up on time, so good seeing you, Jack. Anything before we hop?
Do you have any idea what you want to do next week, so we can tease up next week?
I don't have a particular idea. I would love for the community to let me know if they're running into any issues.
Yeah, I could do a poll on the Slater Twitter and ask people.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Yeah,
Josiah, nice one as usual. Great to have you, Josiah. I hope that was helpful. I learned a lot there. I didn't realize that, just like Josiah, I didn't realize that you could use attributes. And also the functionality that swiper.js has, I don't think I realized the full extent to which you can customize stuff. Very excited to dive in and try all that out. Thanks loads, Jared. Thanks, Josiah, Marina, Berno, squad. Appreciate all of you.
Cool. Okay,
see ya.